So we've got Graeme Saker, Ben Reynolds, and myself, Mark PK, here to talk about what famous words of Ben Reynolds were getting slower than other people is the trick, and how to enjoy it. So we've got Ben, who I think by his own admission was an amateurish approach to athletics until sort of got serious with tack in your 20s, 30s, then got very serious with it when he got over 40s and got into vets running. Would you say that's right? Yeah.
That's about right. Yep.
Um, and achieved some fantastic times, but also world champion at 45, 50, over 5K, 5,000 meters, and a V50 London Marathon win, I think, were a
Yep.
few of many highlights. Graeme Saker, slightly different approach, came from schooling into basically moved straight into sort of top flight running. Was competitive with all the big names in those days. Was that the 80s, Graham? 80s
Yeah.
with the Sebco, Elliot, Steve Ovett traveling the world, recounted some fun tales of collecting brown envelopes and things around the world in these sort of
Yeah.
amateurish times. Um, have some fantastic times, 800 meters to 3,000 meters, really specializing um,
Yeah.
with a 1,500 meter record of 3:42.66
Yeah.
and a 3,000 meter 8:12, as well as various wins and lots of wins. And as a vet, over 50s home international winner in 2012 as a V50. And then you got myself, who's sort of come in
Yeah.
as a parent later on in life. 2013, got involved with the athletics club. Enjoyed my tennis, cricket, jogging, except up until then, but has then taken the different pathway, which comes on to as you become a vets runner, you have those of you have been very good runners, coping with not achieving the times that you have in the past, and we'll sort of come on to what's the motivations and how you manage that compared to the probably a growing group of runners more like myself who have had the pleasure of actually getting faster through our 50s, 40s, 50s, which we're driven by PB still ish, not quite now. Anyway, so we've all hit 60. What are we now? 62? 62,
62.
Graham?
64.
64. Oh my goodness, right. Okay, and I'm 60. So
65 soon.
sorry.
65 in September.
Great. That's a new age group. Just got to
Wonderful.
get. Okay, so we did put together a few little sort of pointers. Let's start with the first one. How do you motivate yourself now?
Yeah, that's a tough one, I think. It gets harder and harder, to be honest. I think I think the injuries add to that. And you do feel like knocking it on the head quite often, but you just fight back.
I think it's fair to say you've had your fair share of injuries in the last 4 or 5 years,
Yeah,
including
more recent times, yeah.
that knee osteotomy you battled back with. You've now got an Achilles issue, but in between that, there, I guess there's that joy of running.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Ben, anything to add?
Yeah, I guess I am still motivated by the thought of being competitive with my peers. So I pretty much ignore, well, I don't ignore times, but I mean, you can't be motivated by times because that's relentlessly going down, but you can still be motivated by peer level competition. So whether it's World Masters or European Masters or just getting in the England team for the international cross country or whatever, those are still motivating factors for me. And
I
yeah,
think there is a switch, isn't there, when you switch to right, this is what counts now.
yes,
Going to a race, first thing you want to look at is my age group. I want to look at the age grading. Um, I don't mind if that youngster's gone past me because I'm going to be checking age grading.
Yeah.
Um,
I agree.
sorry, Graham.
I agree.
Okay, yeah, good.
It
Okay,
keeps the motivation there.
yeah, and you know that age grading does give us well, it's like a golf handicap, isn't it? It's putting you on a par. I think
There's
possibly gets a bit warped with as you get older and older, or and the male female differential doesn't quite work possibly, but
there's a self-respect thing as well. So when I am running poorly, there's an element of self-disgust that sort of kicks in, and that motivates me to train to get back to a level that I believe I should be operating at. So there's a sort of a fear of self-disgust, and therefore a desire to be, yeah, have some self-respect.
yeah, okay, cool. Um, okay, so with that desire, you have to be careful to avoid damage
Yep.
and injury. Um, so what do you say to yourself at this point of you're getting fit again and you're starting to increase your distance and um, do you I mean Ben, you're going towards the marathon at the moment. How have you have there been moments of concern of injury or issues?
Yes, for sure. There are various things that I know are weak, and I have to counteract them. So I've got dodgy hamstrings, I've got dodgy calves, um, and so I'm trying to be diligent about doing more gym stuff and more strength and conditioning to sort of protect myself and make myself more robust. Because I found I was, yeah, like many people our age, I was just getting a succession of niggles one after another, which prevented me from getting in a decent block of consistent training. And I think, fingers crossed, touch wood, and all that stuff, that doing the strength training, the strength and conditioning stuff, the bit of flexibility stuff, does mean that I'm now getting in a solid block of consistent training. So I think I need to be more diligent about that. I've been a bit lax for the last 20 years on all that stuff. Well, forever. I mean, I've never done much strength and conditioning or gym work.
Yeah.
And I think that is increasingly a mistake as you get older because you've got to counteract the loss of muscle mass and all that sort of stuff, and you are more fragile. So you've got
So a session, one
to,
session a week of strength and conditioning, or more than that.
I'm trying to do 3 gym sessions a week,
Okay,
some description. Yeah.
that's impressive. And are you more flexible with your training routine, your plans, according to how you feel? Do you think, oh, I was a bit felt something a little bit niggly there yesterday. I might just not do that what I was planning, and I will do something completely different for a day.
I've always been a bit crap with my training. Actually, it's a function of getting near to a goal that matters that I start planning my training. But for the most part, I have no training plan at all, and I just bumble along. Um, so therefore, I am flexible because I make it up on the spot depending how I'm feeling, which is a
Okay.
bit rubbish. So as I get close to an event that matters, then I start planning it, and then I'm a bit more rigorous about doing what I plan to do when I plan to do it.
Okay. Actually, that something I was going to sort of talk about, ask a bit later was interesting. So you're very much self planning and led. Graham, I'm sure you're the same. Um, I'm I sort of train with the group at the club, and so I follow session planning that we do, not particularly aimed at me, but if we're doing mile reps or K reps or timing reps, um, I'll do those. Um, and then I'll do my long run, probably doing 4 runs a week. Try to do quite a lot of stretching, not enough strength and conditioning, goes in little phases. Um, but do you take advice? Do you take advice from anybody else, from coaches, from, or or other athletes? Do you listen to anybody? Because I mean, there are a lot of people who spend a lot of money actually um, being given training plans. I certainly see it at work, and I think, oh, crikey, do not know what to do now, sort of thing. Do you take any advice?
Let Graham go.
Well, I do. I mean, you can read a lot about different things, but I think a lot of the training that you do in groups isn't it's not so good for me now because you need to you all the time you've got to modify what you're doing. You've got to think about what you're doing so as you don't overdo it. Whereas probably 10, 15 years ago, it didn't matter so much. So I think you tend to adapt it and you live in your own little bubble a bit more. So take advice. Yeah, I do. I listen to lots of things and I do take advice and I try and mix things up and introduce things that I might have picked up here and there, but generally I stick to my own.
Yeah,
I
that's
do a gym session a week because, as Ben says, that is important. I should do more probably. Although I do more when I'm injured, which seems to be a lot of
yes.
the time.
You're very good at that, aren't you? Very good. I admire your motivation.
Well, a lot of that came from that rehab, that injury that I had, the rehab I had to do. You had to be diligent, and if you stick to that, you do realise the values of it. So I think having been through that has helped me stick to that. I'm still doing leg extensions and
Yeah,
single leg um, squats, if you like, now.
become a good habit.
Well, yeah, because I just know that this leg isn't as it once was.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Not as
yeah,
good as the other one, probably.
no,
You'll be
quite.
running around in circles. Um,
It's interesting on taking advice. So twice in the last 5 years or something or other, for a build up to a race, I've decided to treat myself to getting, a coach to set a schedule for me. Um, I'd say in both cases it hasn't been particularly successful, and I'd have probably been better off if I'd done it on my own. I quite enjoyed having the schedule set for me because then I didn't have to think about it, and I just went and did
Yeah,
it. And sometimes, when the weather's crap, if it had just been me, I'd have just chosen to do a gentle six or something. But because the schedule said you've got to go and do this, I went and did a session in the pouring rain or the cold or the dark or
yeah,
whatever. So occasionally it can help with a bit of motivation, but the end result was there wasn't an uptick
right.
from following somebody's approach. So I think clearly I'm as good at setting my sessions as a professional,
Yeah.
and
And do you do
I
your
think,
sessions on your own?
yeah, I mean it's interesting. Graham saying doing it with a group can be dangerous. I So the group that I was training with on a weekly basis here has has petered out. So the guy who was holding the stopwatch has given up, and I haven't had a replacement, and that was like 15 months ago or something or other. So I've had no regular group to train with for the last 15 months. And I mourn that. I think that's a shame.
mm,
Um, so Graham saying, you don't necessarily want to do the session that everybody else is doing because it might not be appropriate for you at that stage. Because I'm not quite as fragile as some, I still think doing a session with a group, whatever it is probably better than doing the perfect session on your own.
I think
Really,
it does help you one to get,
motivation
yeah, it
and
gets you there. I mean, certainly
gets you
through
there.
January, there were
Yeah,
nights when I thought, what am I doing here? But I was there doing the session. I think it's a very helpful when you start to know what pace other people are, and you know, right, if I do, I stick with this person, that helps. And actually, if I've had a bit of a, well, if I've been a bit of an injury or I was tired, I think, no, I'm going to go and I'm going to run with somebody further back in the group and I'm going to stick with them and I'll just be off my pace and I find that very helpful to, I certainly in my group, we know, what people are, what pace they're going to do. And although actually, slightly hurtful thing is people sometimes say to me, oh, well, I know I was having a good day because I was ahead of you, PK. Or I know I was having a bad day because I was behind you because you always run the same pace. And I'm like, well, I'm trying my best. But yeah, no. And also, I think just, if you're going to do 10 of something, it's easier in a group when you all say, yes, we're going to do 10 and you don't stop at 8. But
Yes.
perhaps that's
Yeah,
why I was never the winner.
you
Um,
don't bail out if you're in a group.
no.
And actually, I'm significantly quicker in a group. So
Yeah.
if I do 1K reps in a group, let's say I do them in 3:30. If I did that same session on my own, it would be 3:40 for
Yeah.
sure. At
Yeah.
least a 10-second differential, maybe more.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm
Without
actually
damaging
pretty.
yourself at that point.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So it's one of the oddities that even though I've done 99% of all my training on my own, I'm pretty crap at pushing myself on
Right.
my own. So clearly in group sessions, I go harder.
Right. Well, you're both of you have been very good racers, haven't you? You like a
It would,
race.
it would seem so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Graham,
And
you're a racer, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think that
You
brings
race
out.
better than you train.
Yeah, I think so.
yeah.
Um, I accept all the bits about group training. I mean, I trained in the Tunbridge group for many years. I guess I'm that much older and I'm a bit disconnected from it now. And I think if I was there, I might just crack on and probably overdo
But
it.
do you think that's because actually you're still 32 in your head?
Yeah, I think sometimes you have to keep reining that in and reminding yourself of that.
Yeah.
It's easy to go down that path, but I think I'm getting better at that now for
Yeah. There's
for
definitely
purely
been
physical
examples
reasons.
at the club of people saying, they'll hear that, I don't know, James Kingston's running 110 miles a week, and they'll think, oh, that's what I should do. And think, no, 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 you're 42, you're 55, you're no, leave him to it, sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I've never actually really properly been coached by anyone, to be honest
Okay,
with you. I've had coaches off and on throughout all my years running, but I've not really had anyone. I've not had that personal coach ever, to be honest.
okay,
I think the nearest I came to that was Brian Mitchell at Tunbridge was coaching me a little bit, but sadly about a year after that joining up, sadly passed away. So I haven't really ever had that.
okay. That's interesting. Yeah,
So I've made some mess ups along the way for sure because of that. But
it's called experience.
that's that's just the way it was. I mean, I think
Actually, my
I was
next
always
question was,
envious
what
of
do
the
you think
grammar
has been your
school.
biggest mistake?
Sorry.
My next question was, what's been the biggest mistake in your 50s or
In my
50s
fifth,
to now?
it's a difficult one, really. I think when I look back, I think probably biggest mistakes is probably not particularly focusing on what I should have been focusing on specifically. I was dabbling with events and this and that, and not really putting all my effort into what I should have been doing.
Okay.
But I don't really have any regrets per se later on. Certainly not. In my 50s, I was running reasonably well, so
Yeah.
no, I don't think so.
Good. Ben, anything for you?
Um, I guess in my 50s, I was running quite well, but I would say that I think the succession of niggles is a symptom of completely neglecting flexibility and the strength and conditioning. So, the fact that I can't get within like about 2 feet of touching my toes, and I
Have you ever?
I've never done much flexibility work, and I've got away with it like for 30 years or 40 years or whatever it was. And I think it's coming home to roost. I mean, I can remember people saying right in my early 20s or something, to give your running career longevity, you should do yoga or Pilates or something or other.
Mhm.
And I've always thought all of that stuff is a waste of good running time. But I think at some point it comes home to
Yeah.
roost. So
Yeah, it's interesting the longevity bit of it that's key, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
if you're as tight as a drum, then clearly you're going to be more susceptible, and I think
Yeah.
that's happening to me now. So I think in my fifties. I mean, I got away with it until then. I think in my fifties I should have started doing regular flexibility work, and I should have started trying to counteract loss of muscle mass because I sort of got to my 60s and I think my performances relative to my peers have dipped significantly.
Do
And
you
I
know
think
if they're
that's
doing more
well,
stuff?
some of them aren't, and some of them are. So as ever, there's a massive
Yeah.
variety. So actually, it was interesting on the Ethiopian trip. Um, we had a complete range of approaches. So we went from a chap called John James, who is injury prone, runs about 15 miles a week, if that, and then is the only person in the country who's capable of beating Andy Leach.
Right.
Um, so he's fantastic, but he does almost no running. He does lots of gym and cross training and all sorts
Okay.
of other stuff, but he does almost no running.
Wow.
And then, there's another over 60, Chris Upson, who's averaging over 100K per week of running and is running
Wow.
incredibly well. And then there's another guy, and he does loads of weird sessions, like he'll have 40 times 200 in an indoor track in Glasgow. So he does lots of weird things that you would have
Right.
thought were guaranteed to injure yourself.
Yeah.
And then we had Terry Booth, who's another over 60 from Guildford and Godalming,
Oh yeah.
who
He just got
runs.
ahead of me last Tuesday actually.
Okay, so he runs huge mileage incredibly slowly. So
Okay.
most of his running is outside 6 minutes per K,
Wow.
um, usually about
Goodness
six
me.
and a half minutes per K. It's like he could walk. Um, and that's what he does. And he does a race, he races a lot. So he races once a week, basically. So that's his speed session. So you go from somebody who's doing 100 to 150K per week incredibly slowly with one race a week. To John
He's
James,
retired, I take it.
he's retired. To John James, who does almost no mileage when he races astonishingly well.
And
It
who's
takes
the
all
guy you
sorts.
mentioned that he can beat? Who I know you used to be
Andy Leach,
Andy Leach.
who's
So do you know much about his training?
yeah, so he just runs. He doesn't do gym. He doesn't do flexibility. I think he's a bit of a you know he's
It's a bit
obviously
old school.
a natural talent. He's always been good ever since school. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, yeah, it's interesting, as you say, every year, isn't it? How things change.
yeah,
Um, who knows what's around the corner for
yeah.
everyone?
So he's 62 and he's just run a 34-minute 10K. So you can't argue with that.
It's incredible,
No.
incredible.
That's 97% age graded.
Wow,
Brilliant.
wow, that is amazing. Yeah. Um, okay. Yeah, I think my biggest mistake was trying to increase to be like others and not listening to injuries and niggles and thinking, oh, that will be all right. I would definitely say to people, when you feel something as you get older, you don't necessarily run through it.
No.
It needs a break, and sometimes it's just a day. Like on Sunday, actually, I did a 10K on Saturday, and circumstances meant that I didn't get to do a warm down or stretching or anything in the evening, and then got dragged into a game of tennis, still in my running kit, and not a serious game of tennis, but meant the next day I went for an easy run, and I just thought, oh, do I feel something in my calf? Perhaps it was up in my head. I was expecting something because I knew I'd done wrong, but I did stop and walked back,
It's easy to get
and
carried
then had
away,
a
isn't
good
it?
session last night. So
It's so easy to get carried away. I can remember what Neville Taylor once said to me one year at the Southern Cross Country or something, when he saw that I was still running and he was a bit taken aback. And he said, "Don't forget, Graham, year on year, you can't train like you used to train.
yeah,
Just remember that.
Yeah.
and don't ever search for.
I think
And
that's
you're
been one of your biggest problems, and I've heard you say it to me so many times. Yeah, but I'm just not doing the mileage. I'm not doing the mileage like I used to do. And I remember saying to you, yeah, but you've
can't,
got a broken
can't,
knee.
can't. I'm quite.
But that I
When
think
I
that's
look
the
back
key
where
of
I'm
being a
at,
good runner, becoming an older runner, isn't it? That's the difference.
it is. But when I look back on when I woke up after that op and looked at my leg, I thought, shit, what have I done?
Yeah,
But I'm quite proud actually to get back to a level after that. To be honest, I don't. I think there's a lot of people that wouldn't.
absolutely. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so I try and use that to spur me on a bit. But
I do often think to myself, I look around and I see a lot of the guys at the club who can't, they can't run, you know.
I know.
They'd love to be
So
running like we are,
I
and
count my
that's my motivation. I'm so lucky. So, um,
I count my
um,
chickens in that respect.
yeah. So as I've only got the 40-minute thing on this, we'll
The other thing I do is worth mentioning, I
yeah,
think, just a little point. The other thing I do is that to try and get away from times, although you keep your own times on reps sometimes, and you might just your own personal times, you might draw comparisons, but I try and do fartleks or run as you feel sessions, I call them, where I'm putting effort in, but you can't compare it to anything
right. It's how
or
you feel.
anyone
Yeah,
or anyone, so you don't know how you're doing, but you feel good afterwards.
yeah,
It's just a little thing that I think is a good
yeah.
thing to do as we get older.
Again, something you said to me, Ben, at the start of a Vitality 10K was, and I said, "Oh, my amateurish said, how are you going to run? What's tactics?" And you just said, "Oh, you just run as fast as you can." And, I said, right, okay. And so I have to say that's what I tend to do now. Um, I haven't bothered with a watch for quite some time because I've decided. Actually, if I look at my watch and I'm going too fast but feel good, well, that's good. If I'm going too slowly but I'm trying my best, what can I do about it? So I've sort of tended to take the approach, well, I'm just going to have to run how I feel. Um, Possibly, I'm thinking now, perhaps I should be just controlling myself in the early parts of a race. But
I
yeah,
never look at watching a race, never.
no, well, and also I probably can't actually read it now, so
There is that
without a
advantage
longer
too.
arm.
But it's
I can
interesting
read
what
it for
Graham.
sessions because I've got a watch with large print on it.
But it's interesting what Graham said about the sort of the motivation and times. Chasing times can be demotivating. So for the two brief periods when I was following somebody's schedule, they said go and do 5K at this pace and 4K at this pace or whatever it was. I was unable ever to hit the target times.
Yeah,
And I got quite miserable about that. And I used to dread the sessions more and more and more because I couldn't get to the times because I'm crap at pushing myself on my own, sort of thing.
was he
So,
was he a coach that understood a veteran's running?
oh yeah, and
Yeah.
he knew
Okay.
me well and all the rest of it. And they were sensible target times based on my race results.
Okay.
It's just that I race better than I train,
Yeah.
and therefore in
Yeah.
my training I can never hit these bloody times.
No. No.
Um, and I found that profoundly depressing after a while, and took any joy out of the sessions because I was just failing every time.
Mm.
Um, so to Graham's point about doing a fartlek and finishing pleased with yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's not to be underestimated,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
You need to enjoy your feeling good at the end of a training session is an important feeling. Otherwise, you're not going to do it again, are you?
I
Yeah,
think
always try and finish with a flourish.
you take quite a long time. I don't know, I mean, but you look at sets. Often you get faster and faster and faster through a session. I think that's the sort of key of big warm up, isn't it, before racing? Is you do need to be well warmed up as you get older. Um,
Yeah.
anyway,
Definitely.
look, we've got a few minutes left. What advice would you give to some of the better runners in their 20s and 30s? How say at the that we see a lot of at the club. I find it very disappointing when I see them get to a point and then they stop, and that's sort of it. And I think, what a shame. You're going to regret this when you get later and you think, oh, I can't run like I used to. Um, and they could still be they could be part of teams and things. Um, any advice?
Well, don't waste the opportunity because, you know, time flies. When it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah,
So don't think, oh, I'll take a year out. I can't be bothered. You know, try and maximize what you're doing.
yeah. I think that's very good
Yeah, I think you've
advice.
got to find a motivation that you can that keeps you going through the routine of life as it changes. You know, as you say, if there are people in their late 20s and they're getting married and they're having kids or whatever it is that might stop them, they've got to find a way of keeping that motivation going. But I think it's really difficult. I mean, you do look at some of the superstars that Tunbridge has had, and they just stop, and you think
Yeah,
it's a tragedy.
yeah,
But clearly, whatever it was that motivated us, I mean, I always feel that running sort of partly is who I am and what defines me. And I guess it wasn't for those people.
no.
Um,
No.
there was something else that motivated them to compete at a high level when they did, but it wasn't enough to keep them going when circumstances changed. And
And I
I think
presume it's
for
the
me, it
same
was always my
for all
therapy.
sports, isn't it? That people who've been at the top, what's the, if you've been a top tennis player, what's the point of hitting a tennis ball when I can't hit it as well as I used to hit? It's so annoying. What about, yeah, I can imagine cricketers, they can't hit the ball like they used to. It just must feel awful. The good thing about running, of course, is you can go out running and it's very flexible. If you've got small kids or you've got a job and your times change, you can still go and run around it. You don't have to be
Yeah,
there in
because I,
daylight. You don't have to be with the weather or whatever.
I think because if it's always been your therapy, like, which it has for me, then
Yeah,
why would you stop that?
yeah,
Why
yeah,
would you stop that and
yeah,
lose your well-being and your mental
yeah, yeah.
well-being?
Okay, cool. Right, so we've got 2 minutes left. So I think we'll wind up on that very good note from you, Graham, and wish Ben all the best at London.
you?
And
Yes.
hopefully we'll see you. You gonna do some Vets League this year?
Well, that's the plan. Yeah.
Great,
If
great.
I'm still in one piece, I would definitely like to because I plan to go to Daegu, so I need to do some
Okay,
track.
great, great. And
Good
Graham,
luck.
you back running?
Yeah, sort of. Fingers crossed.
Good.
I can't even think about the track this summer, so
No, no.
I'm just going to try and get back and look to the cross country maybe.
Good. Great. Lots
Very
of
good.
positive then. Okay. Thanks very much,
All right.
guys.
Very
Thank
Okay.
you.
good.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Pleasure. Bye.